The ledge. The California sun was a merciless hammer on the back of Elias Thorne's neck. For 15 minutes, it had been the only thing marking time. 15 minutes since the pickaxe had bitten into the quartz vein with a different sound, a soft, yielding crunch. 15 minutes since he had seen the flash. He wasn't in the crowded, muddy chaos of the American River anymore. He was high on a rocky ledge, a place his partner, Samuel, had called a fool's errand. But Elias had seen the way the water washed sediment from that particular outcrop. He had a feeling. Now on his knees, his breath coming in ragged gasps that had nothing to do with the thin air, he pried the chunk of rock loose. His fingers, calloused and split, trembled as he brushed away the dust. There it was. Not a speck, not a flake. It was a web, a series of fine golden threads woven through the white stone. It was a rich man's treasure trapped in a poor man's hand. His heart thundered, a wild, hopeful drum against his ribs. He saw it all in an instant, a wood-frame house in Ohio, smoke curling from the chimney. Clara, his wife, no longer thin and weary from worry. His children with shoes that fit. This one rock could buy it all. But then a shadow fell over him. Elias? He jerked his head up. Samuel stood there, his broad frame blocking the sun. His eyes, usually crinkled with easy laughter, were flat and hard. They were fixed not on Elias's face, but on the rock in his hands. "I told you this ledge was worthless, Sam," he said, his voice dangerously calm. Elias gripped tighten on the stone. "It seems you were wrong, Sam." "I see that." Samuel took a step closer. The pickaxe was still slung over his shoulder. It looked heavier than it had an hour ago. "That's a partnership find, Elias. We shake the pan together. We split the color. That was the agreement." The air crackled. The agreement. Two men united against the wilderness. But Elias had done the hard work, followed the hunch Samuel had mocked. This wasn't just gold. It was vindication. It was his future. "And we will split it," Elias said, his voice tight, "after we get it back to camp." Samuel's smile was a thin, cruel line. "I think not. I think you'd take that rock and disappear into the night. A man's character shows when fortune shines on him. And a man's greed shows when he sees it in another's hand," Elias shot back. The 15 minutes stretched, the silence between them more vast than the canyon below. Elias saw the calculation in Samuel's eyes. One strong swing, a body tumbling down the rocky slope, an easy story to tell in the camp below, a tragic fall, a lost partner, the gold never found. Elias slowly got to his feet, the weight of the oar an anchor in his palm. He was smaller than Samuel, but desperation was a great equalizer. "Don't be a fool, Elias," Samuel murmured, his hand easing the pickaxe from his shoulder. "Just hand it over. Walk away. Your life is worth more than rock." But it wasn't just a rock. It was a dream, solid and real. Elias knew then that the gold wasn't the prize. The prize was getting down the mountain alive. The real test wasn't finding the treasure, but surviving the man you found it with. He looked Samuel in the eye, his own heart a cold, hard stone in his chest. "Come and take it," he whispered. And for a long, terrible moment on that sun-baked ledge, the history of America was just two men, a vein of gold, and the terrible choice between wealth and survival.
The two men were statues of tension, frozen in the harsh Sierra light. The only sound was the dry whisper of the wind scraping across stone. Samuel's knuckles were white on the pickaxe handle. A lifetime of shared hardship flashed between them. The brutal journey west, the fever that Elias had nursed him through, the shared meal when the flour sack was empty. But that lifetime was now compressed into the glittering threads in the rock Elias clutched. "You're a stubborn fool, Elias," Samuel hissed, the words tearing from him. "That rock will buy you a coffin and nothing more." Elias didn't blink. His mind, once flooded with visions of Ohio, was now cold and clear, focused on the physics of survival. Samuel was bigger, stronger, with a weapon. Elias had the ledge at his back and desperation. "The fall would be messy, Sam," Elias said, his voice unnervingly steady. "They might not believe it was an accident. They'll see the struggle. Then this," he gestured slightly with the rock, "this will be evidence. They'll hang you for murder over a rock you'll never get to spend." He was bluffing, and they both knew it. Justice in a mining camp was swift and shallow. But the seed of doubt was enough. Samuel's eyes flickered, just for an instant, from the gold to Elias's face. It was the opening Elias needed. In that fractured second, he didn't attack. He moved sideways along the narrow ledge, putting a jagged outcrop of granite between them. He wasn't trying to fight for the gold. He was trying to fight for the path down. "It doesn't have to be this way," Elias shouted, the words echoing slightly in the vastness. "We found it. Together. We can be rich men by sundown." "There's no together anymore," Samuel roared, swinging the pickaxe in a short, brutal arc. It wasn't aimed at Elias, but at the rock face between them. Chips of quartz and granite exploded, stinging their faces. It was a warning shot, a display of terrifying power. The message was clear. The next swing would not miss. Elias's heart hammered against his ribs. He saw the wild, greedy light in Samuel's eyes. Reason was gone. The man before him was no longer his partner. He was the embodiment of the gold rush itself, ruthless, single-minded, and destructive. Samuel advanced, the pickaxe held high. Elias made his choice. With a guttural cry, he didn't throw the rock at Samuel. He drew his arm back and hurled it with all his strength, not at the man, but over the edge of the cliff, out into the empty, sun-drenched air. Samuel's eyes bulged. "No!" The golden quartz tumbled, end over end, a speck of fleeting fortune catching the light before it vanished into the deep, shadowed gorge below. The sound of it clattering against the rocks on its way down was faint, almost insignificant. The two men were frozen once more, the violent purpose drained from the space between them. The pickaxe in Samuel's hands suddenly seemed absurdly heavy. He let the head drop, its point clanging dully against the stone ledge. He stared at Elias, his face a mask of utter, incomprehensible loss. Elias, his chest heaving, met his gaze. He had nothing left. His dream was gone, shattered on the rocks below. But he was alive. "It's gone, Sam," Elias panted, his voice raw. "It's all gone." The fight was over. The gold was lost to both of them. The only thing left was the long, silent walk back down the mountain, the ghost of a partnership and a fortune hanging between them, heavier than any rock.